as we are having this meeting, the latest hurricane is barreling on into Florida. And this comes after the hurricane of Helene, which really just devastated. And I think the death toll is now well over 200. There are still many hundreds missing. It has devastated broad swaths of the Southeast. I was looking into this a little bit today on the question of the cost, which I think is important. And I think it gives an indication of the character of capitalism. There's a 2013 study, so this was now about a decade ago, but the order of magnitude will be about the same, that found that in order to protect and drastically reduce the cost of floods and damage in at-risk cities, this was for over 130 cities internationally, which were most at risk for floods and severe weather on the coasts, as is now happening in Florida, that it would cost, they estimated, $50 billion a year, and that such an investment would reduce the cost. They did this in terms of finances of the damages caused by flooding and other natural disasters, like the hurricanes, that it would reduce the costs from $1 trillion a year to about $60 billion a year. By investing $50 billion a year each year, that it would reduce the cost massively. And of course, if one looks at then how much the impact on lives, it would be dramatic. And they're talking about instituting well-known mechanisms for alleviating the impact of flooding, for the storm surges, which are now impacting Florida. That such an investment would drastically reduce the impact of hurricanes, like what is now happening. $50 billion a year, which sounds like a lot of money, but when one considers that the United States spends $960 billion, almost $1 trillion a year on the military, that's 20 times what is estimated to deal with and address issues like what is now happening, or the massive trillions of dollars handed out to the rich, both in 2008, well, actually before it, in 2001, then in 2008, and then in 2020, in response to the pandemic, trillions and trillions of dollars handed out to the wealthy at a drop of a hat, and nothing to deal with social problems. And to claim that there is no money is just ridiculous. The resources are there, and that's to deal with flood protections, evacuation systems. The fact that you have a hurricane coming on, everyone knows, and they're warning, if you don't leave, you can die or you will die. And there's no systematic evacuation procedures. One can only, what would be required? Public transportation, the train system, ensuring that there's solid systems so that everyone, and so you don't have a situation where I saw today, now there's actually tornadoes going across the highways already in anticipation of the hurricane, but traffic jams on the way up from Florida, Route 75. There's no mechanism. There's no social system in place. And the cost of this would not, it'd be a fraction of what they spend on the instruments of destruction. I was just out in San Diego, and they're ramping up military production at the naval base there. And they had one oiler, and we looked it up, and it would cost about $100 million, I think it was, to construct just this one oiler. It's a refueling vessel. And you compare that to the $20 million they're making available for the victims of Hurricane Helene. Anyway, it's an expression of a social system. So I'm sorry, I didn't quite answer your question, but I think this is an important issue because it's the nature of capitalism. And it points to the question that all of these issues are class questions, that one cannot resolve any of the problems confronting mankind. We, as Jerry was raising, we fight for the rights of the working class. We raise this in our program, but the idea that one can realize these rights without a frontal assault on the wealth and privilege of the oligarchy, and opposition to war, and connecting and understanding and developing an understanding in the working class that the fight against war, and therefore the fight against the genocide, is necessarily a fight against the capitalist ruling elite, which is waging a war abroad as it's waging a war here in the United States, and therefore a fight against capitalism. That's the basic question which we have to address.